Chennedy Carter once looked like she was destined to dominate. Her speed, scoring ability, and swagger sparked excitement everywhere she went. Fans whispered about her becoming one of the most unstoppable shooting guards in the WNBA. Yet here we are, watching as she fades into the background, unwanted, unsigned, and seemingly out of chances. How did one of the game's most electrifying talents end up on the outside looking in? No one expected to see a gifted athlete of her caliber vanish from rosters, as if she'd never existed. But it happened so suddenly that you have to wonder, was it all her fault, or did the system fail her? Chennedy Carter didn't come out of nowhere. From her college days, she showed flashes of brilliance, driving to the basket with ease, draining jump shots when the pressure peaked, and talking just enough trash to keep fans entertained. Analysts saw her as a top-tier shooting guard, possibly the next face of the league. Every highlight reel seemed to feature her shattering ankles and leaving defenders shaking their heads. But it wasn't just her natural skill that attracted attention. Her energy on the court, an almost magnetic pull, made fans either love her or hate her. Nobody felt lukewarm. That kind of polarizing presence can catapult you to stardom or destroy you completely. And at first, it looked like the rocket to success was fueling up for an epic journey. Yet beneath the highlight plays and online hype, Carter's issues began to surface. Rumors trickled out. She was clashing with coaches behind the scenes, delivering cheap shots during practices, and stirring up unnecessary feuds on social media. People brushed it off. After all, WNBA players can be fiery too, and the league has its fair share of passionate personalities. But soon, she wasn't just stepping on toes, she was stomping on them. The unstoppable highlight reel you couldn't help but cheer for was also the unstoppable drama magnet that tested every ounce of her team's patience. When the Chicago Sky added Carter to their roster, a lot of fans thought it was a turning point, a chance for her to finally harness her raw potential. Some believed it was the perfect environment for her, a franchise ready to shake things up with emerging young talents and proven veterans. But just as quickly as that hope arrived, it evaporated. Instead of a heartfelt farewell or a second chance, the Sky went ahead and signed Ariel Atkins, a move that spoke louder than any press release. They didn't put out a statement praising Carter's talent or clarifying her release. They simply moved on. It felt like a door slamming shut right in her face. Was this a cut-and-dry business decision, part of a broader roster strategy? Or was it a message that Carter had worn out her welcome? In the often tight-knit ecosystem of the WNBA, reputation matters. And this swap felt distinctly personal. Atkins is a high IQ, hardworking guard who keeps her head down and delivers results without ruffling feathers. Carter, on the other hand, carried the weight of repeated conflicts and never-ending speculation about her attitude. Players come and go in professional sports all the time. Yet rarely is the change so blunt and so telling. One moment, Carter was set to be a crucial part of the Sky's future. The next, she was just gone. Fans had every right to wonder whether we were missing a piece of the story. The news hit social media like a thunderbolt. Some supporters were outraged. They felt Carter had been treated unfairly, as though the franchise made her a scapegoat. Others pointed out that the league wants to elevate women's basketball, not bog it down with messy narratives of locker room drama and toxic relationships. And then there were the Carter loyalists. Yes, they have a name for themselves, who believe the team had done her dirty. They argue that Chicago never truly gave her a chance to show what she could do in a stable environment. Skeptics counter that Carter had more than enough chances. She simply tossed them away, one poor decision at a time. Meanwhile, fans outside the Carter bubble shrugged and said, "Good riddance." They saw the scuffles, the side eyes, and the blatant attempts to get under the skin of rising stars like Caitlin Clark. For them, Carter was more trouble than she was worth. The scoreboard was overshadowed by conflicts that had nothing to do with winning games. In a league striving to attract new viewers and bigger sponsorships, the last thing front offices want is a meltdown overshadowing the actual basketball. The WNBA has grown significantly in recent years, capturing the public's attention with electrifying rookies and record-setting veterans. Why tie yourself to someone who undermines that progress? If there's one name that comes to mind when discussing unstoppable momentum, it's Caitlin Clark. She's the polar opposite of Carter's downward spiral, representing the unstoppable tide of the WNBA's future. The more Carter tried to get under Clark's skin last season, the brighter Clark shone. Rather than rattling the rookie, Carter's antics only seemed to fuel Clark's next highlight reel. While Carter was throwing shade and living in controversies, Clark was breaking records, stacking up triple-doubles, and redefining what women's basketball could look like. When Carter lashed out physically, it only amplified Clark's composure. And the more Carter went after her, the more fans gravitated to Clark's side. The timing couldn't have been worse for Carter. She chose the league's biggest rising star as a target, inadvertently setting herself up for public backlash. The WNBA is hungry for new heroes to drive interest, and Clark is that once-in-a-generation phenomenon. Team owners, coaches, and sponsors all want a piece of the Clark spotlight. Standing in opposition to that wave is basically setting yourself up to be swept away. Today, Clark's unstoppable shot and fearless approach to the game dominate headlines. Carter, on the other hand, has become an afterthought, a cautionary tale about how quickly someone can go from top prospect to complete outcast. Professional sports revolve around talent, but that's not the entire story. Attitude matters. Team synergy matters. The WNBA is smaller and more tight-knit than some other leagues, so once an athlete gets labeled as a problem, it can be incredibly tough to shed that label. In Carter's case, even her strongest supporters can't deny the public feuds, the on-court antagonism, and the general feeling that she lacked respect for her peers. The Chicago Sky's front office likely made a cost-benefit calculation: keep a skilled but divisive player or bring in a steady, team-focused contributor like Atkins. And from the outside, it seems they chose well. If Carter's track record had been different, if she'd built a reputation for elevating her teammates or showing humility in press conferences, maybe things would have turned out another way. But the WNBA isn't a reality show, and coaches aren't casting directors. A player who regularly sows discord can end up diminishing team chemistry and driving away fans. While some drama can be intriguing, the league is primarily about success on the hardwood, not feuds on social media. As it stands, Carter's free agent status doesn't necessarily imply a robust market of suitors waiting to sign her. If she can't prove she's turned over a new leaf, this might be more than a temporary pause. It could be the end of her time in the WNBA altogether, an end so abrupt that it leaves everyone shaking their heads in disbelief. Where does someone like Chennedy Carter go when the biggest stage no longer wants them? For many players, the solution is to head overseas. Leagues in Europe or Asia can sometimes serve as a reset button, offering the chance to refine your craft and show you've matured. But even a strong overseas performance isn't a guaranteed ticket back into the WNBA. History has taught us that front offices have long memories. Carter's reputation currently looms like a thundercloud. Before a team takes a risk on her, they need to be convinced she won't bring the same controversies and negative headlines she did previously. Can she pivot, demonstrate growth, and show the league that she understands what it truly means to be a professional? Possibly. But the timeline is uncertain, and the patience of potential employers is wearing thin. This situation raises bigger questions about women's basketball in general. The WNBA continues to fight for mainstream recognition. Players like Caitlin Clark are bridging the gap, drawing new fans with record-breaking performances and a refreshing approach to competition. Meanwhile, Carter's downfall serves as a grim reminder that no matter how talented you are, you can't keep burning bridges and expect them to remain passable. Throughout sports history, talented players who clashed with coaches and teammates often found themselves on the fringes. Some eventually had redemption arcs, apologizing publicly, showing real change, and returning to the league stronger and wiser. Others disappeared, leaving only the memory of their unmet potential. Is that Carter's fate? She might still have a chance if she drops the reckless antagonism and embraces a new mindset. The challenge is that rebuilding trust requires more than words. It demands consistent action. The WNBA has plenty of promising rookies, established veterans, and marketable stars who don't carry that baggage. If Carter fails to make a convincing case that she's changed, teams will move on without a second glance. And so, while fans debate whether this was a personal vendetta or just a natural progression for someone who refused to adapt, the league continues to look forward. The unstoppable wave of new talent, the blossoming of fresh rivalries, and expanding audience hungry for dynamic, positive competition, all of it spells trouble for players stuck in the old ways of stirring up drama instead of stepping up their game. Chennedy Carter's fall from grace didn't happen overnight, but it still managed to stun everyone who once believed she'd be the next big thing. From unstoppable highlight reels to radio silence across the WNBA, her journey is a painful lesson. Talent opens the door, but character keeps it from slamming shut. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark is thriving, showing fans what it means to captivate the sport without succumbing to negativity. The Chicago Sky, for better or worse, have moved on. Ariel Atkins slots into the roster, and Carter's vacancy becomes a warning sign for future players. Don't let pride poison your relationships in a league that values unity. Does Carter have a comeback story waiting to be told? Or is this the last we'll ever hear of her in the WNBA? Will she reinvent herself overseas, returning someday as a new and improved version of the player we once admired? Or is this moment, the day Chicago replaced her without a second thought, where the curtain closes for good? Only time can answer those questions. For now, Carter remains a basketball parable, a shooting star that burned bright but let controversy weigh her down until there was nowhere left to go. What do you think? Is there still hope for a revival of Carter's career, or has the league moved on for good? Drop your thoughts below, tap the subscribe button, and hit the bell so you'll never miss an update. Stick around and check out our next video on the screen for more inside scoops, because in the WNBA, the drama never truly ends.